Hello, everyone. Welcome to Street Fight TV. I'm Mike Boland, analyst in residence at Street Fight, and today we have as a guest Duncan McCall, who is CEO of PlaceIQ. How are you today, Duncan?
Very good. Thanks for having us.
So we are at Street Fight Summit West, and you actually just got off the stage. So we have a lot to talk about. But first off, give us a kind of wrap up of your presentation and some of the biggest takeaways.
Yeah. So, today I've been lucky enough to talk at a number of these events, and today one of the things I really focused on was specific case studies around how clients of ours are actually using our data in all sorts of different applications. And I also talked about a third-party study that was done by the MMA, the Mobile Marketing Association, with a company called Marketing Evolution, looking at how location data deployed across different cross-channel strategies can actually drive ROI. So we're really entering this phase now whereby the ability to measure and understand what works and what doesn't, and how location can be used across channel can really be measured. So that was really what I focused on, real results, case studies, and hopefully it was interesting and informative.
So, you've been in the location space for a while, tracking location data, innovating in that area. I've been kind of covering it as an analyst for a while. And over that time, it continues to evolve and it continues to gain importance on the demand side. So the businesses that are using it for various purposes. So what is kind of the current snapshot, and what are you seeing in terms of the sentiments towards location data from your clients? What are they asking you? How is their sophistication and their valuation of that data set as a real tool kind of changing and evolving?
Yeah, so absolutely. So, PlaceIQ now, we've been focused on one thing and one thing only for nearly a decade, and that's innovating in location data, as you say. And our focus hasn't changed, but the market has changed dramatically. It's been fascinating to chart the undulations. You've seen it from your side, I've seen it from my side. And I think what we've seen is initially location data being used as a very simplistic targeting mechanism, right? Proximity marketing, and that kind of evolved into this construct of, well, now you can build audiences from location. You can understand the locations that consumers visited and what that means and how they behave, etc. And then it really evolved into attribution, and now we're in this stage of analytics, right? So what we have seen on the demand side is that our clients and I would say the market in general has really evolved to think about location less as just a marketing data set and more about a new behavioral data set that can be used to understand and inform really important business decisions across their organization.
So what does that look like? You're right. Traditionally, location data, its primary purpose was as a marketing tool, as a way to target ads, as a way to measure attribution around ad performance and success. But you're right, expanding the value of data into other kind of departments, into other organizational functions, CRM being one of them. So give us some examples of kind of where that's being integrated by enterprises, by your clients, and where you see it going.
Yeah, the easiest way to think about it is what used to happen, as you're alluding to, is our clients used to think about this as a managed service, right? Use location to you go and buy media more effectively. And then what has evolved is, clients got smart and they started using DMPs, data management platforms, to manage their own data as well as third-party data. So they started saying, hey, we confuse this behavioral data about location with our own first-party data and build a composite understanding of consumers, and we can use that to activate media much more effectively. The next stage, and we have a number of really sophisticated clients that do this, is an integration into the client's CRM system. So now in their CRM, they have a data lake, a CRM, whatever mechanism they have, and they have all these customer records. And they have, let's say it's a retailer, they have purchase data associated with these. Well, now they're appending back the behavioral location data, and they're understanding what competitive elements are there, how often are people going to my competitor, what else are they doing in the world, and they're using that for decisioning across the organization because it's now embedded in the data spine that runs across all their different systems, and that's really been one of the big revolutions we've seen.
Interesting. And beyond marketing activations, you can see that being useful in everything from supply chain management to inventory to staffing to all of these other things. So are you seeing that as a trend where you're not only talking to the CMO or the marketing department, but also now the CIO and other departments that allow you to go deeper within organizations than you traditionally have?
Yeah, and the way I think about this is there's kind of two things happening there. One of which is, you're right, location data can be used for out of home, for television, right? We've integrated our data into billboard buying. We've integrated it into television buying. You can buy television ads based upon location. So if you're a QSR and you want to only show ads to people on linear and addressable TV based upon the fact they go to QSR restaurants, you can do that. So there's a number of use cases, but the other way to look at it that's, I think, equally fascinating is marketing used to be its own silo, right? It's on its own, go do the marketing. Now, in this world where there's an identity graph and data's connecting everything, marketing no longer lives on its own, right? It's fused to supply chain management, it's fused to planning, it's fused to site selection. So what we have seen is really the extension of these marketing data sets, including ours, across the organization. And that's where things get really interesting, right? The ability now for the guys in analytics to use the same data set to understand individual store performance, who are we competing with, and push those sort of conclusions back to the marketing people who can activate, then the results go back again. So what we've really seen is those two sort of themes, but the really exciting one for me is the fact that organizations now have this data spine and location data as part of it. Therefore, all the functions in the organization have access to this kind of new intelligence.
It is fascinating. So as a last question, you spoke about QSRs, quick service restaurants, in your presentation. And I'm wondering about kind of vertical segmentation and trending that you're seeing, whether it be QSR, whether it be other verticals. What are kind of the strengths of the QSR vertical, for example, or its attributes that make it particularly conducive, or a entity that particularly values location data? Is it the frequency of the transaction? Is it the location-based nature and the offline nature of the transaction itself? Or what are some of the other virtues that make it a prime target for PlaceIQ?
Yeah, so absolutely. So if you think of what we saw in the evolution of this space, probably the first most aggressive sectors we saw engaging with location and really understanding the opportunity were, let's take two examples, retail and automotive. Because they are initially, they sell products that are typically available in the physical world, although there's omnichannel aspects to them, but they're also used to dealing with customer data. Retailers from day one, they have customer data because they have the relationship with the customer. Automotive, you have a relationship with the customer, right? You have customer data, there's registration data. So they fundamentally understood the power of that stuff, and they really lent in, probably 5-7 years ago. And then you started to see what you've been alluding to. You see places like QSR and CPG. Now, these are entities that don't necessarily have a direct relationship with the customer, right? You don't have a direct relationship with the CPG company. You're not in a loyalty system typically for them. Same with QSR. Even those emerging loyalty systems, QSR knows very little about their customers. Primarily because there's no loyalty system, but also secondarily, it's a cash-based system, so there's no traceable purchase to cause identifiers. So what we've recently seen is those segments like that, like CPG, like QSR, they suddenly realize that, we've obviously been saying this for some time, but I think they've really now embraced the fact that, hey, we don't have a lot of customer data. Many brands now are about, we've got to understand our customers, we've got to have first-party data. So they're suddenly all searching for first-party data mechanisms, and they're building loyalty apps, etc. And they suddenly realize that location is an incredible way for them to build a CRM or DMP, because we can see all of the devices that visit those physical locations, and you can now build loyalty models from it. You can see where else they're going. You see how frequently they go there. So QSR, because no traceable purchase, no loyalty system, and now they're embracing the sort of customer-centric view, has been a fantastic vertical in sort of recent, I would say, 12 months that have really embraced location.
Well, it is fascinating. So thank you for joining us, Duncan. Thank you all for joining us as well. And stay tuned for a lot more from Street Fight. And we'll be watching closely to see where PlaceIQ takes all these fascinating topics going into 2018 and beyond. So thanks for joining us.